Now you've heard of guilty pleasure songs or guilty pleasure foods, but this is my guilty pleasure car. Well, it's not really a car, it's actually a ute, or for other people watching this, it's a pickup truck. This is the Ford Ranger Raptor, and I've already reviewed this truck in depth before, but as a matter of events, I've actually managed to get a hold of another one to review. And this time, it's in my favorite color that Ford makes in any of their cars. It's called Code Orange. It looks great, and it's actually my dream spec for the Ford Ranger Raptor. And so I was thinking, what video do I make for you guys to show this ute off to you and sort of explain why it's so special? Well, I had an epiphany, and I thought, this isn't really a ute anymore. If you want to tow, you don't buy this ute. If you want a slow rock crawling off-road car, you wouldn't really buy this. But if you want an off-road sports car, well, ever since I created my review on the Ford Ranger Raptor originally, Porsche came out with the Porsche 911 Dakar, and also Lamborghini came out with the Lamborghini Huracan Sturato. So there is a clear demand for off-road supercars and off-road sports cars. And Ford even released a rally version of their Mustang Mach-E. So this is a bit of a trend at the moment. So Ford was ahead of the game when they released the Ford F-150 SVT Raptor way back in the early 2010s. But here with the Ford Ranger Raptor, you have an off-road sports car. That's what this is. And let me show you that everything that makes this one of the best vehicles if you want to go off-road fast. Now, let me show you all the cool features that you get for that price. First of all, you can see here, it's wider than a normal Ranger because you need a wider stance for better off-road stability at high speeds. And that's what you get here with the Ranger Raptor. And you can see these fender flares out here on the side. Number two, you get these really cool bonnet vents up here, which yes, are functional, which is funny enough because you're not really used to seeing functional aero on utes like this. Now, also you get this giant Ford lettering up front here, which is insane. And it's very, popular with dogs as well. So you can see here the giant Ford lettering, which actually goes back to the original F-150 Raptor, which is really cool. And then you get these really nice LED lights here on the side, which are nice and bright, but they're also something that you see on the F-150 in terms of a similar design. And you're getting a nice big bash plate underneath as well. So I'm a big fan of the contrasts around the wheel arches. I love the 17-inch wheels. I love the BF Goodrich Baja Champion tires, which have a nice girth to them, and they also have plenty of grip as well. But the only downside is that the brakes are a bit small on the inside. You get disc brakes both front and rear, but yeah, for a big truck like this, the trade-off is really that you're not gonna have the best braking ability on the road compared to something like a performance car that's dedicated for just going on road. I really like the side steps here. They're made out of metal, which is cool, so they're also good for rock sliding if you do encounter some treacherous terrain. You have inbuilt, nicely done mud flaps here, which I think look quite cool. I like the rear vents here on the side as well. I actually like the design of the side mirrors. They're nice and big and complement this truck really nicely as well. You do have keyless locking and unlocking here at the front doors, which is all touch sensitive, so it feels really nice and seamless to get in and out of this truck. And you've also got a really cool Raptor decal here at the back, which I think looks so good. It wouldn't be a Ranger Raptor without Fox shocks. You're getting them on the front and the rear because you're not getting leaf springs at the back, which means it's more comfortable for daily driving, it's more capable off-road, and this thing can adjust hundreds of times in a second. So it can read what's happening on the road really well, which is just an awesome thing to have. And ever since the first F-150 Raptor, which I absolutely adored, it's cool to see that Ford is still using and adapting these Fox shocks on this off-road ute. This car doesn't come with leaf springs, which is something that I've always complained about on top-end utes. Now, in Australia, a lot of top-end utes do still come with leaf springs because they expect their customers to still do all the towing and hauling that they would do in lesser utes. But because Ford has a diverse range of Rangers, you don't have to pick this if you want a comfortable, luxurious off-roader that can also tow and haul. There are other options out there like the Wild Track and also the Ranger Platinum, but this thing is designed to be an off-road sports car, so you don't need to tow a whole bunch or put a whole bunch in the rear. And this thing can still carry over 700 kilos in the rear tray, so it's not really that impractical. It's just impractical compared to another big diesel ute that Ford makes that would be more ideal for doing that sort of stuff. But if you want to go off-roading and that's your priority and have fun driving this thing, it's good to get rid of those leaf springs, which is something I like quite a lot. Also, it's worth noting that this has a capless fueling system, which again is just a little bit easier to live with because this is a thirsty truck, so you will be using that quite a lot. And then at the back, you can see these taillights, which have a blind spot monitor put into them, which is really quite cool. So it means that if someone's in your blind spot here, the car can detect it. And then at the back, I love the black Ford badge. I love the Raptor badge. It's also just it's not even meaty. Like, look at the size of this Ford badge. And this thing's also like made of like a nice material as well. It's a big beefy badge. It looks quite nice. But as you can hear, the gargling of that V6 petrol motor, you've got these massive exhausts at the back. Look at them. They're huge and they just look so great. I just love the fact that they're presented nicely. They're very real and they sound ridiculous. Take a listen. Now, compared to something like a 911 Dakar or a Hurricane Storado, this thing has a massive tray in the back, so it's very practical. You have a nice light tailgate compared to other utes in this segment. You have little cup holders in here as well, and you do have some nice areas to clamp down a clamp. If you have to do any sawing of any wood in the back, you can use these clamps. I've never really seen anyone doing that, but at least you have the option to. Now, what's cool is that you have this tonneau cover here, which is a hard cover, so everything in here is secure when you park and lock this thing, because yes, this locks with the central locking, so you don't have to take out a separate key to open up the rear tray. Now here you have a button to open this, you have a button on the inside, and you can do it from your key. So it's a really accessible electronic rolling cover, which I like quite a lot. Now the rear tray back here has a really nice tub liner as well. It's very securely put into this car, and it also has plenty of tie down points in here. It has some nice floodlights in the back, so it's really well lit at night, and it's very comfortable. So if you want to sit in this thing, you can. It's really quite comfortable, and yes, you can carry just over 650 kilos here in the back, so luggage and all that's not going to be a problem. And if you need to carry anything especially heavy, this ute can still do it. Now it's still plenty practical here in the back. You have some nice storage in the doors. I have good cutouts for my knees, but it's still very cramped because this is a mid-size pickup or mid-size ute. If you want a better backseat experience, you're going to have to shell out a lot more cash and also sacrifice the practicalities in terms of parking and driving this thing in the city for a larger ute. But to be honest, for a smaller ute, this isn't too bad. I have okay amounts of knee room and feet room, and I like the fact you got USB ports in the back, one USB-C and one USB-A, and you also do have an armrest here in the back as well, which is pretty easy to get comfortable here. So for long trips, you could carry 4 people just fine. But of course, if it's just 2 of you in the Ford Ranger Raptor, you can fold that rear seat up and create a bit more internal space, which is quite useful. If you're going on long trips, you can fill up the rear tray and also those rear seats, which can move out of the way for luggage. Now here in the front, it is such a sense of occasion. All these code orange accents match the same paint we have on the outside. But the thing is, if you don't get this paint, you'll still get the code orange accents, which might be a bit annoying if you don't like them. I love the fact that all around the air vents and around the steering wheel and the stitching and the seats, it's everywhere. I love the fact it says Ford Performance in the door sill, because it gives you like a sense of occasion. You're stepping into something special. I really like these softer materials around the dash and also around the doors. But again, you have to remember this is like a work ute originally. This thing is designed to be a working car. So there's gonna be plenty of scratchy plastics because the priority is toughness and something that can withstand a lot of bashing and all that sort of stuff. And that's what this interior is designed to do. But we do have nicer things like these Raptor seats, which say Raptor in them, and they are very, very comfortable, like awesome for long trips. You've also got, yeah, like I said, these soft touch materials, but you have storage up here above the glove box like we would see in a normal Ranger, and more storage in the actual glove box down below. We have a special little book here for our warranty and servicing information, which says Ford Performance on it. Now, we have cup holders that pop out of the dashboard. Of course, we get this giant screen here, which gives us everything like access to our 360-degree parking cameras and also things like our off-road modes, and then anything we need to use for our entertainment, which is quite useful. It's a very useful and very advanced feeling screen. And you do have hard buttons down below for your climate controls and also your audio, which is quite useful. It has dual zone climate controls. Now, we have a wireless charging pad here, which is very useful, but again, your phone will heat up, which is not uncommon with phones using wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which this has. But if you wirelessly charge while doing that, expect your phone to get a bit warm doing that. And you've also got 2 USB ports. You have a USB Type A and USB Type C, and you have a little pocket here, which Ford indicates is for chips. And you've also got yourself a little cup holder area, which you could also use to hold sunglasses, a phone, or even your keys, which Ford indicates by little symbols here. Shifter looks great as well. It's got more orange stitching, and it's very easy to use, which I like quite a lot. And if you do leave this car and drive and you go and turn off the car, it will shift itself back into park. Now, this ute's always in all-wheel drive, which is quite cool. So it's a bit different from normal utes, which are usually in 2-wheel drive. You can select 2-wheel drive if you need to, and you can go into 4 high, 4 low, and you can twist this dial here for your drive modes. And you have some buttons here for your off-road modes and also your parking controls and all that sort of stuff, which is quite useful. Now, the steering wheel here is quite bespoke for the Raptor. It says Raptor on it. You have big metal paddles on it as well, which is very fun to use. You've also got customizable options for your steering controls, your suspension controls and your exhaust, and you can customize it all into a Raptor mode by combining your drive modes and these modes here to set up your ideal drive mode, which is very cool. You have your trailer brake controls in here as well, and you've also got a giant digital dash which has really cool animations when you go through your drive modes. Now you have auxiliary switches up here, so if you want to put accessories on your Raptor, you can do that easily without having to put any ugly switches anywhere, because you have 6 auxiliary switches. So if you have up to 6 accessories that require switches, you have them up here. So with 292 kilowatts, which is around 391 horsepower, this isn't a slow ute at all. So in sport mode, this is what acceleration feels like. It's pretty good. So you can get yourself a nice bit of acceleration, and that means it's probably around twice as fast as a regular performance diesel ute, because this thing can go 0 to 100 in just over 5 seconds. And with this amount of power and 500 newton meters of torque from a 3-litre twin turbocharged V6 petrol motor, it's pretty fun on the road. It's more than enough power for on the road, and you're going to be able to use most of it, although you're going to drag a lot of attention to yourself. This car is loud, or should I say ute. I keep saying car because it doesn't really feel like a truck anymore. It feels like a performance vehicle, which makes me want to say it's like a car. But this thing is a performance truck. It is really quite loud. It sounds like a Baja truck that you'd hear out in Mexico, but this thing is just insanely loud when you have that Baja exhaust open. That's why Ford says it's for off-road use only, because it's a performance exhaust, and when you're using it, similar to like how you use a track exhaust, you're just going to use Baja mode when you're off-road. But that doesn't stop some people from using that out on the road, and it is very loud. I mean, like, look, I love Baja exhaust, but there's sometimes a limit, and I think that Baja exhaust around the town is a good way to get your neighbors to absolutely hate you, especially when you're driving a bright orange truck. On the road, it's pretty quiet with those big tires. I mean, it's not a terrible amount of road noise at all. It's really nice and quiet when you go into normal mode, so you can switch everything into a quiet exhaust setting as well, which helps, so you can go into quiet exhaust and just cruises along. A 10-speed gearbox does well shuffling down to the lowest possible RPM when you're out on the road, and look, it's a good bit of fun on the road. It's just comfortable, it's capable. Sport mode allows you to get some nice cornering as well. So this thing does handle really well for a pickup. But the thing is though, is that this is not the reason why you're buying it. It is great on road, don't get me wrong. You can actually live with it just fine, and it drives a lot better than a traditional ute. But you want to always find a bit of dirt, and it's going to encourage you to do that because of all your drive modes and all your Baja theme and your off-road tires. You're going to want to turn off into a section of road like this. Now, as we cruise along here in normal mode, this is a pretty capable machine, so it doesn't really feel like you have to change too much in this ute. Really, I wonder how far you could get off-road in normal mode, because this just feels so capable, and the fact it's riding on all-wheel drive all the time, yeah, you never really feel like you're going to have to shift out of normal mode. But if you want to exploit the performance benefits of a Ford Ranger Raptor, you're going to want to go ahead and shift this thing into a sand mode, a custom mode, or go ahead into Baja mode, which is for basically fast sections of loose surface. So you can go rock crawling in this, you can go through the mud slowly, but that's not the point. You want to be able to jump into this thing and enjoy Baja mode. Now, as we cruise through here, this truck is just far more capable than anything you'll be able to throw at it. Ford actually took a Ford Ranger Raptor, a relatively stock one, and competed in the Baja 1000, and that thing actually did a really good job of competing in the Baja race. It just went through fine. It finished, and it was a stock truck. It just had some small upgrades here and there to make sure it was race ready, but that's how capable the Ranger Raptor is. This V6 has NASCAR parts, according to Ford, so it's meant to be a definite performance type engine. So yeah, I'm not going to go on any slow moving sections of off-road bits for this truck, for this test, because it's not really what you'd be wanting to do in this. You want to be going at a good pace off-road and be in comfort, and that's what we're doing right now, which this section of road here would normally upset a few off-road cars. You'd have to sort of take some bits slowly. I'm just finding myself very happy cruising along here. Now, if you just put your foot down, the grip on this thing is insane. it just does such a good job just like not upsetting the ride at all when you want to put down nearly 400 horsepower. Now, when I was reading through some reviews of the F-150 Raptor, the reason why I was doing that is because this truck is quite similar to the original F-150 Raptor in a lot of ways. That's one of my favorite trucks of all time, is the original F-150 Raptor. I love the concept. I love the idea of going so crazy and taking something that was so practical and turning it into a purpose-built off-road machine. And you know, it's not trying to do everything at once, it's trying to do one thing really well, which is go off-road really fast. Now, the first generation Ranger Raptor was fine. It was a twin turbocharged diesel motor, but that thing, it was just not a true Raptor in my mind. It was a good attempt at making something a bit more exciting with probably the resources that Ford had at the time, but it just didn't really deserve the Raptor name. But it did still sell really well, and people in markets outside the US love that thing. And some people prefer it because it runs on diesel, and a lot of people like diesel utes. But here's the thing, when this came out, it just flipped the script. A petrol V6 twin turbo motor, a proper performance motor, and it's so good this generation that Ford wants to offer it to their customers in the States, which isn't really something they did with the first generation. Now, this thing's exciting. It's not very practical for doing ute things if you want to do a towing comparison or a payload comparison, but that is not the purpose of this thing. This thing is meant to be exciting. It's meant to be, you know, just something that you can jump into and have a really good time with off-road. Like, listen to that. It's put a smile on my face just going through here off-road. We're hitting mud ruts. Oh yeah, it's dancing around. It's doing such a good job of making me smile. It's drifting on the dirt nicely. Oh, this is just so much fun. And look, the rich want to get into this sort of category, so much so that Lamborghini is putting out the Sterrato, Porsche putting out the 911 Dakar. This is a fun way to spend your time, having a performance motor in a performance chassis, in a performance vehicle that's designed to go purely off-road. Sure, on-road driving is just fine, but on the off-road sections of like where other cars just get upset, and you know, you couldn't really drive that fast on say like a diesel ute. You could, but you know, it's a bit risky doing that because it's just not entirely set up to do that, and it just wouldn't feel as comfortable as this. It's planted, it's wide, and yeah, that original reviews of the F-150 said, you know, horsepower is your best friend. The Raptor is just a ridiculous car, and it makes you want to do ridiculous things, and that's what the Raptor is all about. So yes, having extra horsepower is vital to making this car very enjoyable. Now, this might be a really expensive ute, but there's a way to reframe this in your mind, because you can't really compare this to another diesel ute because it's not going to be used for the same reasons. It's actually one of the more affordable performance off-road cars you can buy, because if you think about it, it's cheaper than an F-150 Raptor, it's cheaper than a Dodge Ram TRX, and it's also cheaper than all those performance cars that are coming out like the 911 Dakar and also the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato. This thing is one of the most accessible ways to get proper off-road performance with proper off-road upgrades, and it's something that prioritizes going very fast off-road. And in this exact specification is how I would get it, and it's honestly something, if I had the money, I'd go out and buy to enjoy, because I think it's the perfect all-rounder performance machine if you like going off-road. Now, thank you so much for watching. My name's Cameron. This is Product Review Cars. Make sure to leave a review of your own car on productreview.com.au. If you want to see more behind the scenes content and more car content, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Product Review Cars there. Now, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.